5 people who took justice into their own hands. First, we have a father who was arrested for beating up the man who solicited his young daughters for sex. Kenneth Faulkner's daughters were just 4 and 7 at the time he thought Thomas Williams, then age 67, was contacting them with the intention of a sexual relationship. Faulkner informed the police. He was arrested and pleaded guilty to 2 counts of solicitation of a minor. He got away without a prison sentence though due to pleading guilty and was sentenced to just 3 years of supervision. The judge defended his sentencing by explaining that Williams had not actually had sex with the children, he was only attempting to. Williams told the court that he believed he was suffering from the early stages of dementia. When the children's father saw Williams after the sentencing, he said that Williams had a smile on his face and winked at him. It was too much for Faulkner, who punched Williams in the face before throwing him down a flight of stairs before carrying on with the beating. He managed to get around 10 punches in before the fight was broken up. Despite having the support of the public, Faulkner was arrested for aggravated assault. Next up is a mom who cut off a man's penis with a box cutter to pay him back for molesting her son. Bonita Lynn Vela thought that the boyfriend of her daughter had a 2-year-old toddler, so she took it upon herself to cut his penis off with a box cutter. She was not sentenced to a stay in prison despite admitting to the charge. She had captured the 18-year-old in the back of a trailer for over 3 hours. Whilst he was trapped, she cut off his penis to remind him every time he had sexual relations. She does admit that she had been smoking marijuana and taking other drugs prior to her attack on the man. Perhaps her judgment wasn't sound. Next up, we have a mom who attacked a teacher for apparently assaulting her 12-year-old daughter. A middle school teacher from Long Island was accused of assaulting a 12-year-old girl, and her mom decided to take action. Her daughter had phoned her to tell her mom what had happened, and she reacted without reporting the assault to officials. Annika McKenzie went immediately down to the school, getting through a security checkpoint, and found the math teacher outside her classroom. CCTV recorded the resulting attack, which saw Mackenzie push the teacher against the wall and trap her in a headlock. It was made a family affair when other Mackenzies piled in, punching and kicking the teacher who fell unconscious. The police thought that Mackenzie's attack was unwarranted. She was arrested for second-degree assault, for which she was charged. Next, we have a 77-year-old who decided to take on a cartel siege. Don Alejo was visited by drug cartel members who intended to take over his farm. Their intention was to scare Don Alejo off the land. He was expected to leave within 24 hours, but Don Alejo had other ideas. He had no intention of giving up his farm and decided not to alert the police. Instead, he decided that he would kill them all. What the cartel didn't know was that he had an arsenal of weapons on the farm. Don Alejo gave all of his workers the weekend off, and he proceeded to secure the house and clean up his weapons. He didn't really have the option of going to the police, as most of them in his neighborhood were on the side of the drug cartels. When his deadline came around, Don Alejo had a gun over every single door and window of his property. The cartel arrived, shooting and whooping, and Don Alejo shot each one in turn. He fired from one place, then went over to another, then moved again, confusing the hell out of his enemies. This ended up as a long standoff until the cartel blew up the house with Don Alejo inside. We're guessing he kind of knew he would be unlikely to survive his crazy plan though. When it was all over, the cartel fled, leaving 4 bodies and 2 injured members. There are bound to have been more injuries though. They didn't manage to take over Don Alejo's farm, and 6 of them are currently crop fertilizer. And finally, we have Andrei Bambursky, who managed to catch his daughter's killer. We begin with the death of a French girl who was killed after taking an overdose of a date rape drug in Germany in 1982. The drug was administered by her stepfather, Dr. Dieter Krombach. Krombach was not prosecuted for the crime despite having a long criminal record. He was convicted in France, but extradition battles were unsuccessful. That's when the murdered girl's father decided to step in. The father was an accountant in France and had tried to win Krombach's extradition legally, but kept on coming up against a brick wall. In 2009, a police station in France had an anonymous tip-off that Krombach was in the country 27 years after committing the murder. Police went to the place as directed by the caller and found Krombach tied up and gagged with a wound to his head. He was promptly untied and then arrested. The prime suspect in the abduction and beating of Krombach was obviously the murdered girl's father, who'd been vocal in his attempts to make Krombach pay for what he'd done. He was actually discovered to be in a hotel near to where Krombach was found. He had nearly 20,000 euros in cash with him and was unable to come up with an alibi. He claims not to have carried out the attack himself, but had agreed with someone for them to undertake it. No one really believed his story, but his bail was set at exactly the amount of money in his hotel room. It was found that the police informant was in fact the girl's father. The court wasn't interested in whether there had really been an accomplice or not. He received a year's suspended sentence with no more questions asked. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button.